Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Freshworks IT Predictions 2021 webinar. My name is Anita Joseph, and I'm the editor of Security Middle East, which is the Security, IT, and Technology publication. The webinar is being hosted by CPI Media Group and IT Global Software leader Freshworks. I'm absolutely delighted to MC today's session titled IT Predictions 2021. We know that over the last 12 months, the world we live in has been fundamentally reshaped by the ongoing global COVID-19 pandemic. In this region, we have witnessed exponential growth in digital transformation, huge migration towards public and hybrid cloud models, and a massive uptake in solutions that allow us to work. The objective of this session is to determine what trends and new technologies will shape the future direction of the IT ecosystem here over the next 12 months. And we will hear from industry leaders as to what we should expect in 2021. Before we begin today's webinar, I'd like to give our attendees a quick overview of today's agenda. Vishal Chopra, Head of Field Marketing, APAC, MEA Freshworks, will kickstart today's proceedings with a brief keynote before delivering a presentation that will examine the key IT findings and issues that have emerged from a report compiled by the Hackett Group study. Following the conclusion of his presentation, he will spearhead a discussion with prominent IT thought leaders, Dr. Jasim Haji, President, Artificial Intelligence Group Bahrain, and Ahmed Al-Ahmed, Chief Information Officer, Nakheel, to learn more about some key topics, such as what are the most important IT objectives for 2021, hurdles to IT transformation and overcome them, and much, much more. At this point, I'd really like to encourage all our attendees to engage with us as much as possible during the session. We want to make this webinar engaging, interactive, and informative. And we want to hear your thoughts and opinions on the IT trends and talking points in 2021. You can submit your questions via the chat function on Zoom, so feel free to submit them throughout the session. They will be answered at the end of the webinar. That's enough from me. It's now time to start today's session. Over to you, Vishal.
Well, thank you so much, Anita, for setting up the context and for a quick introduction to the panel. We are actually joined by Dr. Jasim Haji today, who is president of our Artificial Intelligence Group, Bahrain. We have Ahmed Al-Ahmed, who is Chief Information Officer at Nakheel Group. So thank you so much, Dr. Jasim and Ahmed, for joining us today. And I'm sure that the kind of best practices and practical tips that you're going to share on ITSM and various other IT objectives and initiatives to our audience today, that would be really fruitful to them. And thank you to our audience as well who actually joined us today. Thank you for spending time with us, and I'm sure it would be worth the investment. So thank you so much. Like Anita was saying, here is a quick agenda for the next 55 minutes that we have with you. For a quick introduction, I would just, introduce who Freshworks is. Many of you might already know, but then I will just, talk about our last 10 years journey since our inception. Then get into the Hackett research report. That is the report that actually surveyed a lot of leaders across the globe and found some of the interesting insights around IT, and followed by a panel discussion with Dr. Jasim as well as Ahmed. And of course, like Anita was saying, please keep your questions flowing onto the Q&A tab that you see on your screen. With that said, here is a quick thing about Freshworks. As many of you might already know who Freshworks is, but then from my perspective, I typically say that this is one of the very few companies who could boast of such a great support from the stakeholders. I'm not saying because I work here, I'm saying because of the fact that I haven't seen many companies who would be equally loved and supported by three strong pillars of any business community, which is your investors, then your analysts, and more importantly, and I think the most important thing is the customers. So as you can see on the slide also, we have been fortunate to be funded by who is who of the VC firms. In fact, we were the first overseas investment of Capital G, which is Google's investment arm. In our last round that we did, Series H, we raised a total of 400 million, which actually valued as around 3.5 billion USD. We have 13 global offices today, but as our CEO and founder, Girish Mathrubootham says, ever since this lockdown happened and ever since we all started working from home, He says that now we have 3,500 plus offices across the globe because all of the employees are now working out of their own remote places. As I said, the most important thing and the sort of pride for any organization, certainly for us, through our last 10 years, we have been able to serve more than 40,000 customers across 145 countries. And as many of you might know, Freshworks is a software as a service provider. So we have a host of products with us, ranging into the customer experience domain, right from the time somebody's a lead to the time somebody gets into the CRM, then to marketing automation, and then customer help desk, and so on and so forth. So that is the length and breadth of our portfolio. And many of our products would be actually getting into the top right quadrant of Gartner reports that you see, or Forrester, and so on and so forth. So that is a quick about Freshworks. Here are some of the logos, the known logos, I would say, that you might be aware of across the globe. The point that I really want to drive from this slide is that our products have actually seen relevance across multiple industries, from technology to media to financial services, public sector, and education alike. And these are some of the logos that you would see, which are, I would say, very familiar to us, many of us. Air Arabia, RMX, Emirates, NBD. These are some of the customers, prominent customers from the Middle East and Africa region that we have been able to serve as well. With that said, I would quickly introduce Freshservice, which is one of our products. And why so? Because I felt that in the context of speaking about IT objectives and challenges, I just thought that the audience might be benefited in knowing what Freshservice is. So Freshservice is one of the products that we offer from Freshworks that actually takes care of the employee experience part of it. Because at Freshworks, we feel that only when you have a great EX, which is employee experience, then only you would be able to deliver a great CX, which is customer experience. So Freshservice is your intelligent right-side service management help desk software that can be used by your IT teams. And it's just not limited to IT teams. In fact, the way it actually works is you can actually, almost any division at your organization could actually put a service bouquet, just the way an IT team would do. For example, in marketing, HR, and legal, and many other teams can actually put their service bouquets. And let's say if, for an example, one of the service bouquets within marketing could be that somebody needs a customer case study. So you can simply type in your request through various means, email, phone call, or chat, whatever that be. And then the ticket would be raised and it would be routed to the right unit, as well as within that unit to the right skill sets or to the available employees who have been assigned to that particular module. So that is a quick about Freshservice. This is our ITSM product. Now, without further ado, let me actually get into the Hackett research report. The Hackett group is this 2021 key issues study reveals a state of information technology priorities that add up to an aggressive and accelerated transformation agenda. So many of us would actually know that we've been through almost last 4 quarters. We've been through this pandemic situation whereby we have seen a lot of accelerated digitization across the organizations, across the size of it, and across the industries too. And this report, which was set in the mid of this entire pandemic, tried to capture the essence of what has actually changed and how IT teams have actually grown in their significance and relevance for many of the organizations today. Many of you might not actually know about Hackett Group, but then they are actually a listed, NASDAQ listed intellectual property based strategic consulting firm. They are a leading enterprise benchmarking firm, and they offer best practices in digital transformation to global companies. The Hackett Group has completed more than 17,850, nearly 18,000 benchmarking studies with major corporations and government agencies. So all the Fortune 500s and all the major government agencies that you can think of, they boast to have their in their clientele. Specifically to this report for the 2021 edition, they basically sort of went ahead to interview executive management and leaders of finance, human resources, IT, procurement across global set of mid-size and large enterprises. And that, as I said, it was actually set in the late 2020 to capture the essence of entire COVID situation. The interview or the analysis was more about their strategic priorities and initiatives for the coming year, which is 2021 and beyond. Additionally, each function was asked to respond to questions about enterprise priorities and in the general business environment. This report analyzes these enterprise priorities and conditions and consolidates findings for common issues. So for our specific purpose today, we are just going to focus on the IT issues and the IT opportunities that Hackett group has actually seen. And Freshworks supposed to, Freshworks has actually happened to sponsor this study this time. What I'm actually going to do next is quickly going to take you through the salient insights that has actually come through the 2021 key issues of CIO agenda. And as I said, that the report went about to ask the enterprise objectives. And the another thing was how IT information technology group or unit is able to effectively fulfill the enterprise objectives. So this is the priority that you see. When it comes to the risk management and cybersecurity, that actually comes as the first enterprise objectives and the best in terms of IT's ability. There are three main changes that I would really like to highlight here. The first one is your enterprise digital transformation. And we know for sure that why this has taken a second spot from seventh last year, because of the situation that we all are into. And this is what I actually call as accelerated digitization era. Uh, it's absolutely no surprise that enterprise digital transformation has gone into becoming one of the top most enterprise objectives for 2021. The another one that I would really want your attention to is the little square that you see, rectangle that you see on the remote worker. So this is a new entrant in the top priority, and we all know again this pandemic situation has actually saw a remote work environment, and which is of course going to continue in many cases and many organizations today. So technology and ensuring that, and now IT actually units also carry a, I would say, a dual responsibility of ensuring remote worker effectiveness, uh, uh, giving them tools for collaboration and productivity enhancements. The last one where I would like to get your attention to is the uh, enterprise cost takeout. I think from cost perspective, everybody has realized that cost is one part of it, but then the ROI mindset, or to get into a situation whereby your business is continuing, your remote workforce is enabled to deliver the promises to your customers, to your employees. I think that has taken a precedence over the cost. So it's not that the cost has sort of become a less of a priority, but then I think the cost is now getting into a ROI mindset, which is something which is absolutely a great shift for the entire organization and across the globe. That is what I would say. Another interesting insight, it's a busy slide, but then let me actually help you read it. The report went on to ask the adoption on and the projections for three key technology groups: infrastructure, data technologies, as well as automation. Now, what you see in infrastructure, which is cloud-based platforms and core applications, the blue color is basically, a large-scale deployment, and the little green color that you see is the pilots or a small scale. You would see that in the infrastructure technology, especially on the cloud part, there is a huge adoption even before COVID, and COVID has certainly accelerated that. So almost 80 to 90% of the market is already, or the respondent is already actually using cloud in some or other fashion. And the group projections that you see, the group saw is around 25%. Come to the data related technology, which is more about, excuse me, which is more about data visualization, which is more about advanced analytics, ensuring that the data that you have brings you insights and actionable insights that too. So you would see, a decent adoption actually happening around, I would say 75% on an average, and a growth rate which is lesser than to the infrastructure technologies or cloud adoption, but then still sizable for in the range of somewhere around 17% on an average. What you see at the bottom, which is automation technologies, robotic process automation, or RPAs as we call it, virtual assistants or chatbots, cognitive computing, or artificial intelligence, you would see that there are a lot of small scale pilots which are actually happening. And almost 40 to 50% of the organizations have actually started adopting to it. This is the wave that we are actually not trying to, that we are witnessing in the market today, and across the organizations, across the functions, your AI, your chatbots have actually taken a precedence. And from growth projections, this is lowest in the list of the three technology buckets that you see, but then it is growing steadily. So this is the state of digital adoption across various technology sets. The last thing that I thought would be interesting for all of us to know is how these technologies basically pair on the expectations as well as with legacy applications. So the question that was asked was that, to rate the expectations or meeting of expectations across these left hand side, technologies that you see. So for legacy applications, you can see that 73% people said that it's meeting expectations. None actually said that it's exceeding, and 27% of them were actually not happy. Cut to cloud base, you would see almost 20% of them being very delighted with cloud. And I also feel that this situation has actually led to a lot of cloud adoption, and also a lot of adoption, not just from the organizations, but also from the end customers as well as from the employees. So there is a rapid adoption that has certainly helped on the cloud, meeting expectations and exceeding too. You would see chatbots and all, and you would see a little longer red bars, which means that they are falling short on expectations today. But then you would also see that a major portion of the respondents, more than 50%, I would say 60, 75, and 53 that you are seeing in the remaining bars, that clearly says that the world is rapidly adopting these new technologies, and there are ways through which the technology is also getting mature, and there are ways whereby organizations are ensuring that there is a better implementation and better education imparted to their employees, and so on and so forth. Now, enough from my side and enough of monologue. I would now like to get into the poll discussions, and I would request both of our panelists, Ahmed and Dr. Jassim, to come back on the video. The way I have actually, kind of formatted this entire thing is to ensure that we have traction and engagement coming in from our audience too. So across the questions and sections, we have actually introduced some poll questions for our audience today. The poll question is just the same question that the report would have actually asked the respondents. And we would really want to understand what this audience feels about that particular aspect of ITSM or IT, and then see how the global audience actually kind of thought about it. So we'll see that. And with that, the first poll question that should be coming to your screen. CPI media team, can we have that? Thank you so much. So the question that is on your screen, and you can read it. Cybersecurity is, of course, number one priority, but barring that, what do you think is the second most important IT objective for 2021? According to you, what should it be? We can keep the poll live for a couple of seconds, and appreciate you responding to the polls. While people respond to it, this is where we will see how the global audience actually felt about the priorities, of course, cybersecurity and many other. As you can see, 50%, almost half of us are actually feeling that accelerating the IT digital transformation is actually at the number two priority after the cybersecurity. And then there is an equal split of 25 each on, I would say, aligning IT skills and talent to the business needs, as well as improving IT cost efficiency. So I think the cost or the ROI mindset is still, sort of here too. So let's just see how this actually fares vis-a-vis your global audience. Now, as you can see, secure data systems is the number one priority. That was the number one priority all across. Act as a business partner to business is second. The third one is IT skills and talent, which actually kind of matches with what our audience is feeling today. Point number 5, which is accelerate IT digital transformation, is something that our audience felt is that should be the number 2 priority. And that is exactly what we have also seen. Remember, this entire study was actually set in 2020, end of it. And we are already like, 4 or 5 months out from that study. I think the 4 or 5 months has certainly put a lot more focus and a lot more relevance to the digital transformation projects and how IT teams are actually, helping to accelerate it. So I'm actually not surprised to see number 5 being number 2 already. And with that said, let me actually get into the first question with the panel. And let me read out this question for our panelists. What, according to you, should be the top 3 objectives for the IT teams in the Middle East? So both of the panelists actually, belong to different markets and from different walks of technology, if I may. And I would certainly want to understand, and I'm sure the audience would also want to understand, what do you think would be the top 3 priorities For this year as well as future, Dr. Jasim, I would really want to start with you and understand what do you think about the top 3 priorities, especially from Bahrain market and from your experience.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Good morning or good afternoon to our friends in UAE. Thank you. Thank you for your invitation. Thanks for CPI. And also honored to be here with my friend Ahmed, who's one of the top CIOs in UAE and I would say in GCC as well. So, and then glad to be here with your audience. Going back to your questions, if I may answer it in a different way, and I will say those days that the priorities and objectives were set by IT teams, I think has probably evolved now after the pandemic, because now I believe the objectives are not so driven by IT teams as much as is driven by the CEOs and business, witnessing that IT is very much integral part of your business and no longer a service provider. So this is where we look at the mixture of the business and understanding. That's why we see creation of, especially in banking sectors and others, not only the CIOs, but you have CDOs, chief, I would say, fintech officers, chief security officers. So those are all taking, I would say, pieces of IT cake, if you like, that was driven in the past. But going back to the objectives, whomever may be driving it, I believe it is important to understand that post-pandemic, these were things in Leo that they were due to come, but it was only accelerated by the recent pandemic. The effect is how do we, number one, I believe, is to transform the routine jobs in the business. And when I say the routine jobs, I mean probably the blue collar activities, and this is going to be probably challenging for the workforce. Into some statistics mentioning that 15% of the jobs in probably in the developing countries and maybe up to 50% in the developing worlds, the jobs were done by routine activities. So that's where, you know, the automation and the artificial intelligence, RPAs and others, which we will come into a few minutes, will take over and convert those activities into more of digitalizations. And then it will come to, I believe, the cost effectiveness, the business, and the, you know, probably mention few like hospitality, aviations, and others badly affected. Now, how do you transfer them? How do you reduce the losses, increase the revenue by the usage of the modern technologies? And this is, I believe, another important part. The third, but not the least, is the improvement, again, with the aid of various technologies such as virtual assistants, RPAs, chatbots, to improve the customer service experience. So those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jasim. I think there are a couple of great points that you mentioned. One is, of course, this is accelerated digitization, and I was taking notes of it. Another thing that you actually happened to mention, and which I absolutely agree, you said that IT is just not a CIO agenda. There are a lot more, you know, people who are actually, you know, and a lot more divisions or units who are actually, you know, taking the IT objectives. You also happened to mention about how automation is going to basically bring in the cost efficiencies and scale by automating some of the mundane or repetitive tasks, both in customer servicing as well as in the other portions of the business. So thank you so much for laying the you know, 3 top trends or objectives that you see from your perspective. Ahmed, from your perspective, what are the top 3 objectives? I know that, you know, you've been in real estate, and when it comes to the entire dynamics in the real estate industry, and especially from the perspective what the last 12 months have been, what do you think would be the top 3 objectives?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, Vishwal. I really appreciate being here between all of you, and it was good to see Dr. Jasim. I consider him my elder brother in the IT, actually. I feel shy to talk actually and to sit with him in a panel, and I usually learn from him. So thank you very much for bringing us to this webinar, and thanks to the audience as well and to the organizers on it. So see what happened during the last year actually accelerated. Everybody knows that the industry of IT got accelerated dramatically during the pandemic time. And as a lot of people are saying, we have jumped maybe 10 years ahead with the implementations of so many things. Now, a lot of companies actually got positioned during this period based on their readiness at that time. I'm talking about 2020 over here before I jump to 2021. Based on their readiness for the business continuity plan, where some other organizations are looking at this point in this year actually, which is 2021, because they didn't have it. They just plugged a few things just to make things work during the pandemic, but now they are looking at the governance of their IT operations in general to have a proper business continuity plan in order to accommodate the future. Nobody knows what is going to happen in the future. If I talk on my let's say organization setup, we used to have the majority of the applications ready with us prior to 2020 in general. We used to have Microsoft Teams, we have to have mobilities in general, mobile applications for the employees to do their jobs, action their tasks. But the adoption was very limited because they used to come to the office and they used to do it through their laptops, through their PCs, and they do things in a traditional manner, I would say. Now, the pandemic actually shifted this mindset, which created a lot of challenges even on the IT, because a lot of people now who are coming from the other departments are thinking like the CIOs, why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? Okay, which created little challenges to the current or to the CIOs or to the IT in general departments, that there are so many things are available. We have seen many other organizations doing other things. They never seen it before. Okay, so they created lots of challenges to the organization. Now, looking at or going back to the let's say objectives of the three objectives. If I have many in my mind, to be honest with you, but to summarize the three or four, I see still the digital transformation a very important topic. This comes from the organizations that they still have a lot of diversity in their business. Same of what we have internally in Nakheel. Nakheel is not only a real estate. If you look at it, we are managing malls, we are managing hotels, we are managing big residential leasing portfolio, owners association portfolio, facility management, community management. So when you look at it, there are so many dinosaurs inside the organization in terms of systems that actually, managing the full operation. It's not only a matter of building some or constructing some buildings and selling it. So the digital transformation is a long journey. We have to drive it fast. It got accelerated, yes, but the journey is still there to the majority of the organizations, how I see it internally. Now, the other part is the cloud transformation. When we look at the cloud transformation, I specifically look at cloud transformation as a SaaS model. A lot of people are talking about the cloud, but it has no sense to shift your hardware from here to there. Actually, going to the SaaS model, you get rid of a lot of headache in terms of the operations and the back. Let me call it a dirty work at the back end. Let's focus on the high level, what is going to be delivered to the customer, and the application layer side, what can be innovated in this layer, rather than focusing on the hardware and the maintenance of the hardware, plus the operating systems. The third item that I would like to highlight over here is the data analytics. The data analytics, which also lead to the adding to the top of it the artificial intelligence. The data analytics that can lead to a prediction, not only having the traditional business intelligence kind of systems that will give you only a dashboard, give you a historical report. Yes, you need the historical information, but how can we predict our future? How can we predict our customers, the need of the customers? This is actually that's what we are currently focusing on and trying even to build internally. So I have many other things to mention, but due to the time, I'll leave it up to you.
No, thank you so much, Ahmad. I think there are some great points that you mentioned, and along with the dinosaurs and many other things, I think you were absolutely amazing. The three, sort of objectives that you laid out for any IT organization out there is digital transformation and cloud. I think you summarized it quite well. That cloud basically brings you speed and scale and gives you ability to focus on application layer without having to worry about a lot many things that you would otherwise have to do. And predictive analytics. So absolutely, the predictive part of it, not just with customer expectations, servicing, but even otherwise, that how you can actually run your business more efficiently and sort of be proactive in many other walks of business that you do. That actually kind of brings me to another set of question and another set of thought process as well, that if cloud or predictive analytics, and Dr. Jassim was also talking about the automation, the RPAs and chatbots and whatnot, that actually talks a lot about how this entire digitization has actually brought in this biggest change, which Ahmad, you rightly pointed out, is the mindset change. And now everybody is actually thinking about IT, and everybody is actually thinking how IT is affecting their work and how they can contribute back to the IT vision of the organization. So Dr. Jassim also happened to mention that IT is not just limited to the CIO organization today, but then there are many other pockets who are actually kind of thinking and working together. While to Ahmed's point, it's a little challenging, but then I also feel that it's very exciting, because when the entire organization is looking at a certain initiative together collectively, that brings a lot of energy and a lot of, I would say, a lot of focus into the initiatives. So that is a quite interesting, sort of change that I'm witnessing from both of our panelists. With that said, I would like to actually take a quick segue and get into the subsequent poll of our, our section. Now, I would really want to focus on the IT initiatives. We actually talked about what are the objectives that should be done, but then from initiatives perspective, what are the most important IT initiatives for 2021? CPI Media Channel, if you could just, yeah, thank you so much. The poll is actually on your screen right now. So again, just respond to the option that you feel would be the most important IT initiative for 2021. Is it the automating the workflows to what Jassim was saying, or improvability of data to enable business value is what Ahmed was alluding to in his last comment. Upskilling, reskilling IT staff is, I think personally, that learning and unlearning is part and parcel of everybody's job. And enablement of business resiliency, basically to ensure that how business can continue to run, and reducing technology complexity. I think cloud, and then also talking about the kind of adoption that you have. It's nothing but certain extent reducing the complexity of the technology. If we have responses coming in, we can certainly display that. So majority of actually feel that automating the workflows to reduce manual dependencies as well as repetitive work, to what Dr. Jassim was actually suggesting in his previous comment. I think that has actually taken a precedence for many of our audiences today. Business analytics is coming third, but then again, it's prominent with 17% of us actually saying that yes, analytics is important. Reskilling, upskilling, I think that goes without saying. That is always a priority and sort of a moving target for all the organizations, how to reskill, upskill, especially when the environment is so dynamic, when the changes want you to adapt to things quickly. I think reskilling, upskilling yourself is nothing but the only way to grow and keep on the resilience part of it. So with that said, this is the same question that we had actually asked our global audience to. And you can see that the number one priority is automating workflows, which is what our audience also felt. The ability of data comes second best. For our audience, it was third. Upskilling, reskilling is the third. I think the top three order, if you really see, it's almost similar to what the global audience had also felt. then business resiliency, technology complexity, and so on and so forth. The list is actually in front of you. So these are the top most common IT initiatives that many IT organizations across the globe are actually prioritizing on. So we talked about the enterprise objectives in the previous section. We are now looking at the IT transformational initiatives, which is your, doing a lot of automation, doing a lot of analytics or predictive analytics, as we call it, more about IT enablement of the staff, more from upskilling and reskilling perspective. I think there are a lot of initiatives, but the question that I have for my panel is, what can IT leaders do or IT units can do to make these initiatives successful? See, one thing is to actually think of various objectives and kind of pen down various plans to it. But then when these plans gets into execution, that is where a lot of challenges would actually kind of come. And both of you actually come through a vast experience. So what are some of the advices or recommendations that you would have for our audience today that they can adhere to or can kind of take care of? Ahmed, I would like to actually start with you. I know that you felt shy speaking with Jasim, so I thought I would start with you so that the shyness can be addressed.
So now I feel shy to speak before him in this case.
Before as well. Oh my goodness, I can't solve for it.
All right, thank you. The question, what I see over here in the screen, is rightly addressing the point that a lot of people are ignoring. A lot of people are coming with a lot of initiatives and end up with partially successful or maybe failed in many cases. How I see it, the preparation for it, starting from the backbone infrastructure side, the maturity of the initiative itself, the buy-in from the end user and maybe the management side. It depends on the level of the initiative itself. Some of the initiatives needs top-down push, Some other initiatives you need to bring them from down to top. That depends on the type and the nature of the initiative. Now, when you plan it well, when you categorize it well, when you let's say divide it into proper milestones during the implementation time, that will add a lot of it will speed up actually the delivery of the initiative, and it will ensure the successful. Selecting the right partner, based on my opinion, is very important also topic. There are multiple initiatives which require maybe suppliers to participate in, because being an IT department, you cannot do everything in-house. You have to bring partners from outside. So you have to select the right partner. You have to select it's not only a partner who can implement, but who can also improve. The delivery has to be in an agile model in general. And you have to, especially in the period that the initiative, nowadays, we have everything is ready. And if I talk from the environment that I'm in, especially living in UAE, including the rest of the Gulf countries as well, but UAE was one of the first countries who established the fiber optic across the country. So talking about the readiness of the infrastructure, not only inside the organization, but also among the country, is very important for bringing the large initiatives to the success stories. The regulation is a very important factor as well. When you also do anything, you have to be in line with the regulation, and having a strong regulation within the country also will improve the delivery of the services and the initiatives. Over here, alhamdulillah, in UAE, we have the regulations and the regulatory authorities. The industry itself as an IT is very much mature over here and established since very long time through the smart governments within the cities or the emirates of UAE. We have ministries today. Actually, this is how the government is pushing a lot in terms of regulating and supporting the industry of the IT. We have a Ministry of Artificial Intelligence. This is also adding a push towards delivering the initiatives and ensuring the success. Actually, it comes in multiple levels. It depends on the initiative itself? Who are the affected users out of this initiative? And then
Right, Ahmed. No, I think you brought in a very good point. Basically, what you're saying is, in order for any successful implementation, what you really need to actually look at is how strong your foundation is. Now, when it comes to the strong foundation, it's the mindset, it's the buy-in from the users or the various stakeholders. You also happen to mention that not just your organizational readiness, but then the infrastructure readiness or the compliances or the government policies or public policies also plays an important role in ensuring that you have that kind of strong foundation. So thank you so much for sharing this insight. Basically, in order for you to, or for anybody in the IT teams who is looking to launch some of the initiatives, the important part is how strong your foundation is. Dr. Jasim, I think I would like to basically ask this question, but in the context of the automation or artificial intelligence, which is your forte. And then I'm seeing some of the questions from the audience coming in from those perspective too. Like if somebody is actually trying to put in artificial intelligence or trying to do RPA or sort of automating things, what are some of the suggestions or recommendations that you would have to make those initiatives successful?
Thank you very much. And I second also valid points that Ahmed raised on that front. So just to add to them, let me just give you a couple of examples and then just maybe expand on it. First of all, in terms of what IT leaders can do, and I hear that probably from several CIOs in Bahrain specifically, that we are getting more budgets approved now during the pandemic compared to what we used to in the past 10 years. Because the CEOs now realizing how important it is. So I think it's a golden opportunity for CIOs, those who have these kind of supports to probably fast tracking such things. To my views, I have a different opinion about digitalization and what I call the digital transformation, and probably came up with a different synopsis for it and call it the smart transformation. I think digital transformation from the old way that it was known to automate processes, activities, focus on the infrastructure, and have third parties to implement it. I think that has probably evolved to smart transformation of using more of autonomous activities, like what Ahmed mentioned earlier about the prediction analysis, talking about the conversation, autonomous actions. These are all part of the family of artificial intelligence and IR 4.0. Saying that, today probably, if you look at Europe and States, and this is probably coming to the Middle East, the most demanding jobs are not for, and I'm not discouraging by any ways, those people who are academies, are not people with a bachelor or master degrees in computer science. The jobs that are coming, and Google and Microsoft and others are demanding, are the data scientists, are the people working with big data. Those people who are working, which are again a little bit far from IT, are the algorithm experts, because this is the basis of self-learning, the people who work in NLPs. So maybe in months or year or two, the infrastructure activities will be more of commodity and outsourced to people who do that job. So maybe you don't want to, as an IT leader, to keep in-house doing those activities. You want to do something smarter that is related to the business. And I think today with AI, there's a challenge, because in the past you take the top 10, and I don't want to go through them, but the top 10, any technology you decide to adapt, they will implement it for you and go on. But today with machine learning, etc., those are not even amongst the top 5. There are new companies evolving, and many companies are developing their own people. In banks, I noticed in Bahrain, there's a great structure and demand on data science. So there's a chief data scientist that's sitting alongside the CIO. Then you have people who are working on the algorithms. These complete the triangle, and others who do the Python and other programming. So I think this is becoming a different part, because you cannot categorize them all in the same level and say, well, there's a, as in the past, a certification on certain business levels of my organization, and once they pass it, they can implement it. No, there are parts that you can do, there are parts that you need help of the others, but eventually people who understand your data, your algorithms, and the business are becoming more of internal part of the organization.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jassim. I think between Ahmed and Dr. Jassim, what we are actually, what they are trying to say is that strong foundation backed by strong data analytics is the place where you would never go wrong with your any of the IT initiatives that you make. So thank you so much for bringing those insights from your experiences. I think this is a time for me to actually now go back to the audience with my next poll. So Chanel, if you could launch the next poll, please. So one of the things that we already talked about is the objectives. Then we went on to discuss about IT initiatives, and now here we are actually talking about the KPI buckets that one really needs to track in order for somebody to know how successful their IT initiatives are. So what is the most important KPI for our audience, that is for you, that you think that the IT team should track? So is it business operations stability, which is the number of times that the certain process or technology kind of malfunctioned or discontinued? Or is it the progress on the transformational projects that we were looking at in the beginning of this conversation? Cybersecurity incidents, number of incidents that needs reported. I think that is one of the most classic KPIs that you would see for any of the IT teams out there. Impact on bottom line as well as on top line, which is nothing but the growing or rapid relevance of IT teams to business today. So would be really interested to know your responses, and fantastic. Thank you so much. I think this time we have a clear winner, which is the business continuity happens to be the topmost choice for our audience today, followed by which is a tie between the two cybersecurity incidents as well as progress on digital business transformation. And the last one, which the audience felt, is impact on the top line growth. Now, this is the same question that we had asked to the global audience, and this is what they had said. Business operations stability and continuity happens to be number one. That is what our audience has actually also felt. And if you really see the order of the responses that we have from the audience and from the global perspective, is just the same. The topmost is the stability or continuity of business, followed by the progress on digital transformation, cybersecurity incident, and bottom line and top line. So I think that is where IT is sort of unifying the entire globe, and it's the IT teams who is actually ensuring that all these KPIs are kind of upheld and they are measured so as to see how impactful the implementations were. That actually brings me to the next question for my panel. What are your thoughts on the top KPIs? I would say that is how I would really want you to begin. But then most important and critical part for me as well as for the audience is to know that what are the right success measures to track these KPIs. For example, if I go back, I know that business operations stability is something that has been one of the classic sort of units or the KPI buckets that most of the IT teams typically track on. But when it comes to the progress on digital business transformation, like how do you measure the progress, and how do you know that the progress is actually kind of happening at the right time with the right utilization of resources and the right speed? So what are some of the KPIs that you would suggest to track some of these KPI buckets that you saw in the previous list? Dr. Jassim, I would like to start with you on this and understand what are some of the KPIs, and especially for new technologies, RPAs, and the automation that you're trying to bring the scale that it offers, the cost benefits it offers, do you see these also kind of get into the KPI mix?
Well, thank you. I would like to probably link it to your first questions when you asked me, and I said it's important to look at the profitability of the organization, but reducing the routine jobs, etc.
Right.
End of the day, let us not deceive ourselves. It doesn't matter how much digitalization, automation, security, redundancy you bring in. If the organization is not aligned, its profitability, growth, bottom line, with what you do, the rest of it is just becomes a cover-up. So, with all the respect, with all the surveys, but from the business perspective, this is most important. That's why people bring automation, digitalization, not just to have fun by reducing people or by bringing some latest technology. Without that, it will not be successful. And people who invest, they would like to see strategically return on investment, not in 3 years or 5 years time. They would like to see, and this is the challenge to CIOs, in period of months and maximum a year, with a clear indication, not from the IT, but from the business, that what have you implemented has now contributed to the business. I mentioned those industries are, which are very much damaged because of the pandemics. Those are the people who would like to see quicker KPIs on return on investment. And going back to the technologies that are used, the beauty of, again, the autonomous activities, when you today, all due respect, ask KPIs from the operation manager or security manager, although this is driven from the systems indicators, but again, the setup and the priority is done by the IT people. So they would like to see, they will display and show what they would like to show the management in terms of the attacks on millions of, because what does it mean if you isolated millions of malwares and then you get one and your entire operation is frozen? That KPI probably becomes 99 to 1, it reverses to 1 to 99. Today, and just to give you quickly on the cyber security, one thing we do is we know in the past 3 years the highest paid probably individuals in that area were the security professionals. That's right. Some of them, they get to 6 digits annually, and of course they need to keep up themselves with a lot of updates that's happening in the industry, etc. But with AI now, it's taking over many security tools that are coming now or are AI enabled, which requires less of human interactions, but also it does the self-learning, and it will provide you with all the gaps that is happening in the security. And also the same things in operation. I seen one of the questions while you were talking from the audience about AI implementations and operations, and he was asking, has there any operations been done and by whom? I will not go into the part of promoting who's done it, but I say yes, it has been done, and it's coming up. It's taking probably a lot of space from cyber security control systems and normal operational centers. I will leave the room to my friend Ahmed.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jassim, and thank you so much for taking the question from the audience that we have. While you were actually, speaking of that question, that also, sort of provoked me to think deeper onto it. And so if I may actually go a little deeper on that, Dr. Jassim, on the audience question, I think Muthuswamy has actually asked this question, which you kindly address as well. But what are some of the use cases? I know that you have already said that it's the security, but what are some of the other use cases where you have seen automation, or where you have seen AI playing a role within the gamut of IT?
Because I'll be interested to see Ahmed's views on that, but I'll go quickly on that. One of the areas that are now probably coming up in different parts of the business and focus on is, for instance, in HR. You're looking now at the HR 4.0. Now HR 4.0, which is stemmed from Industry Revolution 4.0, is transforming the entire HR, from the interviewing process, from the interviews assessment, from the face recognitions, the data that is been provided and analyzed and learns by itself is enormous. So that is not being now by any means undermined. You're looking at the banking sector now. The banking sector, where the virtual banks or new banks, NEO banks, which are based on artificial intelligence, you see, disappearance of starting from front desk, call centers, the service centers, the customer relations, to the back end, to the brokers, to the analytic, to the investment people, reliance on AI. So that's, we look at some of the banks in India, China, Australia, up to 11% will be by next couple of years transforming to that. Gartner says 80% of the banks will be, in a different shape, in a virtual by the end of the decade.
Absolutely, Dr. Jassim, and thank you so much for sharing some of the trends that you are witnessing beyond to the or across the various industries, banking and whatnot. I think that actually brings me to the question, and the same question to Ahmed also, and I would also actually get your views. So before we get into my question, Ahmed, I would want you to, or I would like to get your reaction to the question that we have from the audience, which is, what are some of the use cases that you have seen where automation or AI has been actually used in the IT, IT part of the organization?
Well, see, there are multiple use cases, I would call it, as an implementation of the AI. There is one part related to the predictions with the analytics. For example, if I take an example of, let's say, leasing, let's say, the residential leasing, the happiness of the residents, if the complaints, let's say, on the call centers increased from, let's say, a group of people which is coming from a zone within a specific community, this means there is an indication of somebody will be leaving the community by end of the contract, let's say. Applying the artificial intelligence over such data and bringing many other data like the rent price, like the neighborhood, let's say, prices in the market, that might give you a quick indication about how much you are going to lose by end of the year. If you are if you keep the let's say the churning into a certain level, but if you improve it, you might bring additional value to your let's say income or profit. This is in the analytics side. In the automation in the processes side, I'll give you an example. What we have done last year, we improved actually many systems, many services, and we launched more than 70 services online. During when I reviewed the business process of these services, I found that we shrank a huge amount of dates used to be wasted actually in the processes. One of the examples, one of the processes used to take 2 to 3 weeks to be completed. Now it is completed in 1 or maximum 2 days. Why? Because the system is actually doing the job instead of the humans or the agents. A very small example, like checking about the status of a customer. We introduced something in the backbone. We called it flagging. If there is any issue with a land or a property or a customer, then the system will flag this customer automatically. Based on that, the system will take a decision to pass it or to return it, and to whom it should be returned, how it should be communicated with the customer. The cycle of the service actually shrinked a lot, up to a few hours, rather than taking several days to do all this manual job that used to happen in at the past. We call it orchestration anyway. This is part of the robotic process automation and the regular integration between the system. And this is one of the solutions which we have implemented, actually linking more than 9 systems together at the back end, but for the employee internally is just a one simple single screen. The users are using the portal to request rather than visiting the customer service centers. And we have recently launched also our mobile app, which is called My Nakhil. It's recently launched. It's not yet announced, by the way, so you are the first to know about the application. It is available now in the it's a trial version in the Apple Store and Google Store. So I would be happy to get your comments as well. It's under improvement at the same time, but it's available online. So a lot of services are available inside the mobile application, which are automated from the backend. So this is in terms of the automation side. And talking about the KPIs and what measures needs to be taken, of course, any project or any initiative or any, let's say, implementation, it needs to be, how I see it, it needs to be taken in an agile mode. It needs to be broken into small milestones, celebrate these small milestones while going. It has to be in a smart methodology where it is measurable in general, something you can achieve it. So this will increase the let's say the success of the implementation. Of course, monitoring the quality of the service, monitoring the TCO, the total cost of ownership, for multiple years, not only the same year that you are talking about. There are many mistakes that a lot of IT people are doing, where they calculate the cost of the project. They don't look at what is going to happen next year or the year after. I'm always saying you have to calculate a total cost of ownership on a minimum of 3 years. Why? Because you have a hardware, you have a maintenance, you have a support, you have manpower, and this is running cost. It will not finish by the end of the project. What will happen in 3 years period or 5 years period? You have to calculate your total cost of ownership on this period of time, and based on that, you come out with the expected return of investment that you are looking for. So having these things in front of you will ensure a proper success of the implementation.
Well, thank you so much, Ahmed, Dr. Jassim. I think one of the most critical KPI that you both kind of alluded to is the return on investment. No matter how much of efficiency gains or whatnot, and then to what Dr. Jassim also said, that if it is not impacting the business, if it is not increasing the top line or bottom line or both of it, then it certainly is not one of the initiatives that you should invest into. And speaking of ROI, I just thought that I would just name drop this study that Forrester did for us. We commissioned Forrester to do a total economic impact, TEI, report for Freshservice, which is the product that I was talking about. And as you would know, the Forrester framework for TEI is very sacrosanct. They actually interview some of your customers, and then they arrive at various calculations with their proprietary framework to assess the ROI of your technology. And what they actually found on Freshservice is they found an ROI of more than 400% with a payback of less than 3 months. So that is what I think Dr. Jassim and Ahmed, you were talking about, that this is just not about the ROI. It's also, it has to be seen with the total cost of ownership with a longer horizon, and to understand that how the returns would be accrued through the years. So would the cost, of course. That is where the TCO comes in. But then to Dr. Jassim's point, it was also the fact that it has to be done quickly, in the sense that the benefits needs to accrue quickly than to later. So with that thought, I just would like to again introduce the Freshservice part of it and the conversation. I'm also getting reminded of the time. We are already 6 minutes ahead of our timeline. But then this is quick about Freshservice. There was this question about how AI is actually kind of helping into the IT. So when it comes to ITSM, the automation is something which is certainly coming in, and then the AI part is also coming in, not just for automating the processes, or not just to scale up the processes to what Dr. Jassim and Ahmed were saying, also for the enablement of the agents. So let's say if there is an agent who is there, your AI engine can actually work in parallel, offer you a recommended solution for the query that has been raised. And that is what it actually does in the background, in the parallel. while you ask that, okay, has somebody solved for this problem? While you type, it will actually offer you the documents or the links from the K-based knowledge base, as we call it, or would offer you some of the resolutions of those similar tickets that had actually happened in the past. So AI also, kind of help you enable the agents and make them more efficient in doing what the best that they do. So with that said, I would certainly open up for questions. If there are any questions that we have from the audience, that would be great. Otherwise, Chanel, if we could just launch this poll. This is just a quick poll from our side to basically capture the interest of our audience today. If you feel that Freshservice is something that you might actually want to know, and how AI and automation is actually going to help you on making your agents efficient as well as your processes, we would be more than happy to know that. So please feel free to drop your responses here, and CPI team would actually connect with Freshworks, and we will ensure that you get to see our demo of the product.
That brings us to the end of an inspiring and insightful session. It's clear to all of us that the IT industry will be the chief driver of change in the coming years, and the focus, and we need to focus on its new and developing paradigms in order to be future ready. So thank you everyone for your time and for making this event a huge success. Thank you, Dr. Jasim Haji, Ahmed Al Ahmad, and Vishal Chopra for your valuable insights. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Jasim and Ahmed. It was a pleasure hosting you both and moderating this panel. I have learned a lot of new things, and I'm sure our audience would have certainly. So really appreciate you both chiming in and sharing some of the practical tips. And it's quite obvious that the kind of respect that you share for each other, you have certainly, garnered more fans, including myself. So it would be a pleasure to stay in touch with you over LinkedIn and other means. So thank you so much for your time and best practices sharing today.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.